Do we need a?
Section 8 pays for some, I didn't hear Section 8, I'm sorry. Section 8 pays for their own audit also. They have their own auditor, federally funded.
Correct. But the numbers that we were provided with today, I believe it said the library was audited in the amount for how much, Vic?
$2,590.
Under the impression that they work off our, we fund the library with the county. Of course, now the county is no longer funding the library, they're funding it entirely. Maybe that's what you're seeing. But they have their own funding, they pay their own bills, electric bills, utility bills, and things like that. Can't explain why it's there, but I know they pay their own auditors out of their own funding. I think the town attorney's agreeing with this.
They do. So that number, it does not pertain to us.
Our money out of their budget.
Yeah, they get a 1/3 mil that goes into the town library, and that's their budget.
So would it be in our best interest then to
Separate that.
keep it tabled until we can separate it? Okay, that's,
As we all know, the library budget is going to become a very, how can I say it, a difficult issue to discuss in the future.
understandable.
And what is a reimbursement to do for the town? Do they reimburse the town?
I think I'd rather get some clarification and motion to table.
Let's ask Deb to come in, Council President. Deb
Okay,
Nestle.
absolutely.
If I recall correctly, in the RFP we did last year, we specifically listed the library in Section 8 for the services we were procuring. So that might have been an issue we created when we signed the contract. But I do specifically remember writing that into it because it was discussed that those were necessary services. So if that was the fault of council, I apologize for that, for including it unnecessarily.
No need to apologize, it's easily rectified. I would motion to table until we can clear up the matter of the $2,590.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Yeah, can I just comment quick?
No, I'm
Yes,
just kidding.
well,
Go
I
ahead.
am.
Go ahead.
I do have something in front of me that I just got before the meeting from the library director stating work has been done. The audit is not complete, so that's why we don't have a copy of it. She said the holdup is on her end because she needs to get some data on the physical assets. So I have a feeling that may be a partial and we may see a secondary one come through. But just as a work has been done, we just haven't seen the audit yet because it's not complete.
Okay.
I don't know that you need to open.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilman Lutz?
Yes.
Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Council Vice President DeGirolamo?
Yes.
Councilman McVeigh?
Yes.
Council President Phillipsburg?
Yes, Resolution 2018-100 has been retabled. We can move forward to Resolution 2018-101, resolution approving the corrective action plan. I guess there would be, well, no, that they don't, I mean, although they go hand in hand with a corrective action plan regarding council.
Right.
So I can get a motion on the table.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Was this on the table?
This is,
Well, I wanted Councilman Davis to yell at me. Roll call.
Councilman Lutz?
yes.
Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Council Vice President DeGirolamo?
Yes.
Councilman McVeigh?
Yes.
Council President Phillipsburg?
Yes. Okay, Resolution 2018-101 has been successfully untabled. Resolution, motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We can discuss now. Roll call.
Councilman Lutz?
Yes.
Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Council Vice President DeGirolamo?
Yes.
Councilman McVeigh?
Yes.
Council President Phillipsburg?
Yes, Resolution 2018-101, a resolution approving the corrective action plan has successfully passed.
Now we can sign it.
Now we can go ahead and move forward. If I'm correct, there is nothing else on old business. Anything else for old business? No? Mayor, you're up.
Yes, I have a short report here. I will say that I'm very encouraged that the council president and the mayor's office have been meeting regularly and discussing important matters that will be moving the town forward and improving the quality of life, as Councilman McVeigh has recently or just currently mentioned about the pool. Just to give you an example of how important some of these meetings are, one lasted, I think, 3 hours the other night, and
3.5.
as everyone knows, I don't sleep, so that's a long night for me. We're currently looking over we have 1,300 units in the town with 3,000 apartments, and it's not easy getting 3,000. I'm not saying everyone's not cutting the grass or cleaning the yards, but it's hard to get 3,000 people to follow the ordinances with just a few code officials we have. So we're looking at a well-written ordinance that we will task our town attorney with that could start to turn around the number of apartments. And the word we came up with today, Council President, was decommissioning apartments or rentals within a unit. And what we would do then is ask to turn it back to a single-family residence and get that ownership pride. Councilman Davis, you'd like to know, I think you would like to know that the money would come from what you started, and Councilman Lutz and the other council members from the abandoned properties residents. So what would happen here is that we would approach a landlord that was selling or moving on for whatever purposes, financial purposes, or just going to buy houses in some other town. And we would have them remove kitchens, remove extra bathrooms, things like that. We'd have to pay for those materials. You know, it would be a negotiated process, but then it would be reverted back to a single-family residence. If the building is substandard, if this construction code official, Kevin Duddy, determines that it's substandard, we would look to buy and remove that building from the town of Phillipsburg. We have 570 some abandoned facilities or buildings in Phillipsburg, and we need to take action on this. So that was a very productive conversation, Council President, and we were following through with it immediately. Even the code inspectors are thrilled about that because their job gets a little easier. And again, the pool is a quality of life issue. You know, we have to move the big boulders, but we also have to make people happy. And to see all those children up there was a sight for sore eyes. I was really happy to see that. The council president and I have also agreed not just to talk about the fun stuff, but also talk about the more difficult discussions that we have opposing views on, and not let them build up. Discuss them personally, face to face, rather than in the media, that we believe is hurting the town. And so, Council President, I would like just one tonight. You know, my staff is important to me. We discussed opposing views. We almost came to some conclusions, but you know, not everything works out, and I completely understand that. I still argue and try to believe that the Faulkner Act gives me the authority to administer, operate, and maintain the town. And I know the council has their legislative powers, and that is, as our town attorney has mentioned, it does get into some gray areas. I wanted to share tonight with the residents and other council members here tonight that there is a very interesting court battle going on in the town of Rockaway, and it involves the Faulkner Act. It's the mayor who has sued the council, and the council is suing the mayor. There's seven attorneys involved. I don't want to see the town of Phillipsburg involved with 7 attorneys in any way, shape, or form. But the decision, if I'm not mistaken, is going to come out in August. And at that time, we may have a clearer view of how it works in this form of government. And I think it's kind of interesting that we battle back and forth a little bit, and all along it's not just us, it's going on in other places, and we'll watch that decision very carefully. Again, you know, not to be repetitive, but I do need my 8th position. I do need my clerk position to move forward. And I ask you always to be, you know, considerate of that in order to continue the town to move forward in these important initiatives that we all agree on. You know, we agree on the riverfront, we agree on Ingersoll Rand, we agree on the problem with the abandoned buildings and apartments. So I'm going to keep up my end, Council President, and do the best we can to meet whenever we can, even if it is 3.5 hours at 9 o'clock at night. The last thing I had here tonight, I just wanted to pass it out. Please consider it. I'm asking for a temporary BA for 6 months, and the way it would work is if council would consider it, it's a temporary assignment for 6 months until a permanent BA would be approved. I think we have 4 applications in, and I have to do 4 interviews, which I will carry through with. And at the end of those 6 months, if council and or mayor decided that it wasn't working out, we would just end that agreement. If I may pass these down just for the council's edification. Thank you. And again, very encouraged to have these conversations. A little bit of a headache sometime when you got, you have sinkholes and fires and everything else, but as someone eloquently said at this council table, welcome to municipal government. Thank you.
Mayor, thank you. And to reiterate, I did enjoy, it was 3.5 hours. It didn't feel like it.
No, it didn't.
For the first time, it actually felt like we were making progress in a positive manner with both Chief Hay and Mr. Duddy at the table. I'm looking forward to moving forward with you, as I expect the rest of the town is as well, and council. So I thank you for taking 3.5 hours out of your day last week to meet with me. Mayor, the piece of paper you put in front of us, I imagine you would like to bring this up at the next council meeting, right?
Yeah, I would. It was just for consideration for council to think over and to consider, ask questions. And I would also offer, although we may not know it, that you may interview that individual at any time in executive session and get a feel for his abilities and knowledge and competencies. Again, we have to follow through with the procedural, and I'm sure the town attorney agrees with me, the interviews and the process in the town code, but this would just give me some breathing room to get some of the human resources off of my shoulders, Council President.
I will place this on the next agenda.
Thank you.
For the
Thank you
mayor
very
to be
much.
heard. You're welcome, Mayor. Okay, that being the end, there is now public petitions, so I know, right, this is the time, by the way, so I would ask again, you come forward, state your name and address for the record, speak clearly.
It's Bill Timmon, 230 South Main Street. To the question I was asking earlier, we had 2 fights last Tuesday on South Main Street. What is the disposition and what are we creating, or what has been created with our influx of new population?
Mayor, would you like to take this one?
Yes, I would. I'm sure as ex-state trooper, Councilman McVeigh would know, and I'm sure the council president and others would know that I can't speak at length on this because it's a police matter. It's in the hands of the prosecutor's office. I am concerned, of course, as the rest of the council, the residents, when there's 40 people involved in an altercation, that there's something going on different than when we grew up, 4 or 5 kids standing on the corner of Dick's Sweet Shop or Bill's Hot Dog Stand. I am very concerned, and so are the police. They're doing everything they can to get to the bottom of how it started and when it started. I want to tell the residents that there is some talk of them, another meeting or another battle, but it's a lot of rumor going around right now. I want to tell you that. There's a lot of rumors, and so be careful what you listen to. As I learn, and the council president and the council will learn, and we will make sure that it's brought up at the next council meeting if the council president feels appropriately to do so. Good question, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have an active gang presence here that we can account for?
I wouldn't say that right now.
What I would request, Mayor, can we have the chief of police at the next meeting?
Absolutely.
To answer? Okay, thank you.
Sandra Morissette, by Fairview Heights. I came up the last meeting. We have some new faces in the audience, so I wanted to address the issue with LMR disposal, as well as ask a few questions of Town Council. As we know, Phillipsburg has tried for years to redevelop the area along the Delaware River, and we are closer now than we've ever been. Mayor Ellis has been working with the state and investors. Main Street is the focal point where people could spend their days poking around bookshops, restaurants, shops. But you on the Phillipsburg Town Council has other plans, it appears. In the June 12th Town Council work session, in which the legal notice stated that action will be taken, Town Council passed the first reading of Ordinance 2018-10 to amend the Riverfront Redevelopment Plan Section 3.9 to permit storage of waste disposal containers and trucks in the zone. LMR Disposal is the beneficiary of this ordinance. It is my understanding that historically work sessions are primarily for bringing ideas together to form policies, ordinances, resolutions and action plans. Then the product of those town council work sessions has historically had the action or vote taken during town council meetings. Any claim of transparency seems disingenuous at best when action items are being executed with a vote during normally poorly attended work sessions. I think the residents of Phillipsburg should be aware of what is happening and also should be attending work sessions so items are not being passed without their knowledge. We were told at the June 12th work session that the second reading of Ordinance 2018-10 would be during the next town council meeting. It was not. Nor is Ordinance 2018-10 being considered at this town council meeting on July 3rd. Just curious why that may be. Will you perhaps be reading it for the second time and perhaps passing it at the next town council work session? Since some of the attendees at tonight's town council meeting may not be aware of the situation, here it is for you. Alpha refused LMR Disposal's expansion request in March 2017, so LMR Disposal began operations here in violation of local zoning. LMR has continued operating despite a zoning violation notice, cease and desist letters, and threat of court summons. The Town Council asked that any violation notices be withheld from enforcement actions and that LMR would be given time to proceed with the redevelopment study before the Phillipsburg Planning Board. Research shows garbage trucks can be 80 to 100 decibels, and the Federal Transit Administration has measured trucks at 88 decibels, 50 feet from the source. Town Code 625-74A states, where the proposed use is adjacent to residential uses, sound level should not exceed 65 decibels from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and 50 decibels from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And where the proposed use is adjacent to commercial uses, sound level should not exceed 65 decibels. As of now, LMR is also in violation of these other town codes. Section 625-73 states a trucking business whose primary business activity is hauling for hire is not permitted in Phillipsburg. Excuse me, is there something wrong with the sound system? Thank you. That is worrying me.
It's distracted the police
Yeah.
officer.
Section 624-7A relates to excessive noise. This was a complaint in Alpha. Section 625-748 states there cannot be emissions or odorous gases or other odorous matters in such quantity as to be readily detectable without instruments. Another concern by Alpha residents. LMR Disposal would also violate a regulation on truck traffic, which is limited to no more than 4 round trips per day per business. Yet their attorney, Mr. Peck of Florio, Perucci, Steinhardt, and Capelli, has stated that 30 to 40 trucks will be entering and exiting the site per day. In Alpha, their operations began at 3 a.m. I went down to this location this past weekend. It is located at Carl's Glass, and the ground goes really far back. There is more than enough room for 30 to 40 trucks to be operating there. Normally, businesses would approach the Phillipsburg Land Use Board, also known as the Planning Board, and plead their case for a variance change. Neither LMR or their attorney came to the hearing they scheduled with the Planning Board. The Planning Board unanimously rejected LMR's requested zoning variance and recommended Town Council do the same. You did not. Ordinance 2018-10 requires a second reading to pass. The public was not given the entire ordinance to read, but rather only 2 small sections. Town Council did, however, amend that amendment to add the word empty to describe the state of the waste disposal containers and trucks. Empty garbage containers and trucks still smell. They still make lots of noise when they start up, and they still leak, which was another voiced and ignored concern. The ordinance needs to be read and passed a second time for it to become law. As I mentioned, the second reading was supposed to be on June 19th. However, it was not, and it is not on tonight's agenda. So please, please, spread the word. Come to Town Council meetings as well as their work sessions. Protest. They may yet hear you, and yet inform LMR Disposal we do not want them in our town's planned, clean, bright future.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm just going to make a comment regarding the planning board. You are aware the redevelopment plan passed the planning board with that item added in it, correct?
What I am aware of is the fact.
You are aware of that, yes or no?
What you have in the plans, I do believe, Council Vice President.
Yes or no?
Excuse me.
Why do you have to know?
What I do believe is that their containers are allowed there for garbage pickup. That is a very different thing. If you go to Belvedere, you can see LMR all over the town. My concern is the future plan here to eventually pass over our Public Works Department and bring in LMR Disposal also, as they are in Harmony and other places.
If I may, the latter part of your statement couldn't be further from the truth.
I'm glad to hear that, because we have very worthwhile employees there.
Oh, without a doubt, you will not find no argument with me.
Okay. The second thing I had asked was, when will this be considered, the second reading?
It will be considered on July 17th. Just so you understand, we had a replacement clerk at that point in time. I don't believe it was passed over. I would hate to place fault upon anyone, so I will take the blame for not realizing that it was not on the agenda. So it will be on there on July 17th for a second reading.
Okay. Now, Town Council members, I'm just curious if you would also perhaps individually speak as to why you think that a garbage company is the best business to have on our main street, with the trucks leaving at 3 o'clock in the morning and loading up.
What I will do is I'm going to defer to Councilman Lutz, because I feel that I've been rude because he did ask me to address you. So I would like to defer to Councilman Lutz.
Thank
I
you.
have a couple questions to ask you. Have you been back on Howard Street?
Yes, I have at times.
You have been times. Have you seen grease and oil and dirt on Howard Street?
At times, yes.
At times. Well, you're here arguing about LMR. What about Atlantic States? Now, Atlantic States, if you go back there during the day, there's 8 to 15 trucks sitting on Howard Street waiting to be dumped off. Meaning all that grease and oil and everything, when it rains, it goes right down into the drains.
Councilman
Now,
Lutz.
you're talking about the noise and everything else. What do you think about us back on Mercer Street and people on South Main Street? When the trucks have to turn onto Stockton Street to get back on Mercer Street, sometimes knocking a pole, sometimes doing damage. But that's okay? And you're saying that that's okay? Years ago, all those trucks used to be lined up on Cigarette Street. Used to be lined up on Cigarette. This is before your time. They used to be lined up. Well, people started to complain that all the grease, the oil, and everything from the trucks are laying on Sigley Street. Then they moved them back to Howard Street. Now, they've been back to Howard Street, I would say, maybe 15 years or better. And every day except Friday, there's 8 to 10, 8 to 15 trucks waiting to be dumped into Atlantic States. But you're saying LMR is no good, but what about Atlantic State? Atlantic State has given us, and we praise Atlantic State. I'm not mocking Atlantic State whatsoever. We praise Atlantic State for what they give to the youth center, what they give to the town, and what they do for the town. I'm not mocking them, and I'm not doing it. But you're comparing LMR to Atlantic States. They're doing the same thing that LMR's do.
Excuse me, Mr.
Yes.
Lutz, I am not. This is two different things, and here
Oh, it
is
is.
why. Here is why.
Uh,
LMR Disposal is a brand-new company coming in onto our main street where we are hoping to redevelop.
Okay,
Fortunately, unfortunately, Atlantic States has been here for many, many years. It was here before I arrived in the town.
correct?
It is the town council's responsibility to monitor what is going on with Atlantic States. What you are trying
It's not
to
town
do,
council, it's the mayor. The mayor, that's everyday situation, so it's up to the mayor.
so you are suggesting that a brand new company should be accepted onto Main Street primarily because we already have Atlantic States
it's-
here, which is not on Main
It's not
Street.
a new company because White Rock Chemical was dumping chemicals into that ground for up to years. Now, the person comes in and cleans it up and does everything he possibly can to make it look nice, and which he is going to make it look nice. He's going to refurbish cars, all the glass at that old dilapidated building and everything else. He's going to do a nice job. And now you're saying because White Rock left and LMR is coming in, that is a new company. After White Rock has been dumping there for up to years.
I will defer back to my original point. That is town council's issue.
If I may.
And it should have, and may I just say one more thing, Mr. Cooper? I know I've extended my time.
Yes, ma'am.
This company is in violation of not one, not two, but quite a few town ordinances. That is a huge concern to me, and it should be to the rest of the town folks here. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Mrs.
I
Morissette, if I may, how long, and the reason I ask is not, I'm not being smart or betrayed, how long have you been a resident of Phillipsburg?
Ah, sorry, you know that well.
No, I really don't know.
No, you did, because my husband just told you that.
Believe it or not,
It was in 1995 we moved here, and we chose to live
absolutely,
here.
and thank you. The reason I ask is because I was curious if you remember the time when there was a booming industrial, it was the Howard Street area, the Mercer Street area, the area where the junkyard was, where LMR is behind. There was a lumber company back there. There was a plastics company back there. Trucks were to and fro constantly, and we didn't have any issues that people are claiming that we're going to have right now. With regard to the garbage trucks, we have garbage trucks being stored right now at the Armory, and the residents on Bate Street, the residents on Heckman, the new Village Apartments, and those on Marshall attending the college have yet to call council to complain, and they actually have garbage in them. So I fail to see, I don't want to say I fail to see the merit in your complaint, because you are a resident of this town. You have every right to come up here and make that complaint, and I respect that. But what I will say is that I don't believe that LMR is doing anything different than those in the past that made this town prosperous with industrial growth. I mean, we have had companies there in the past, and there's never been an issue.
This is not industrial growth that we're talking about. It's not a lumber yard or anything else. It did not exist there before.
Sure.
LMR extension plan was not approved by Alpha.
But
Channel
we're not out
69.
Phillipsburg.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's a shame that they moved from Alpha, where the residents did complain, to here.
Where they're not complaining.
Perhaps because they have not yet figured this out. Because they're not at full capacity and they're not running them all the time yet.
Well, I can't speculate on something that has not happened. And if I could, I'd be a rich man.
Actually, I think from the conversations I've already heard from at least 3 people on this town council, you have pre-made up your minds that that is your right.
I'm business friendly.
That isn't a business that we want for a
Now,
redevelopment of a town that we are hoping for.
So
Thank you
I
very
understand.
much.
Ms. Moore said it's not a business that you want, and I understand that that's how you feel. Thank you.
My stuff is petty compared to that, so this will be a breath of fresh air. Connie Fiocco, 147 Lewis Street. I had a bunch of stuff I was going to discuss, but up until now, it was a pleasant, easygoing meeting, so I decided to only discuss 2 things. One of them I did Oprah requests, and one of them was for Keys Electric for the 2017 Port Fest. The electric bill was almost $11,000. That seems like an awful lot. I requested a breakdown of the work that was done with the dollar amounts for those specific items. I did not get that. All I got was a short summary of the work that was done. It certainly doesn't look like $11,000 worth. I could not get a breakdown list of the work done with the dollar amounts to justify this kind of an amount. And if this is coming out of taxpayer money, I'm assuming it is, $11,000 for electric every year? Is that what it's going to cost every year for Port Fest? So I suggest we don't have Port Fest. But I have, I'm making copies of what was sent to me, and I'm going to 6 outside electrical sources, electric sources, 3 big, 3 small. And I guarantee it's not going to come anywhere near $11,000 for that work for one day. That's a lot of money. So I may be back when I get those estimates back. The other thing I wanted to discuss was the Oprah that I sent for the traffic study. 4 times I received the same thing. Traffic study for Lewis Street and a recommendation by Chief Stetner for a stop sign at Webster. They do not have a traffic study for Webster. This was a request that was made, and they got the sign. There was no traffic study done. They have the traffic average speed on Lewis Street is 20 miles an hour. That's BS. I think they were sitting on somebody else's street doing that. Because I can tell you it is not 20 miles an hour on Lewis Street. Just today, yesterday, my husband witnessed, it was today, my husband witnessed a dump truck, or a garbage truck, our town garbage truck, going up Lewis Street at 40 miles an hour. He heard it coming.